This is going to be a fall session where I think all of the opposition parties are really going to be teaming up together while poking at each other, but teaming up together to really attack the Liberals, because they all see that the mirage has faded for a lot of the swing voters on the Liberals, as evidenced by this poll. Who did they send to continue to try and spin this? They sent the Minister of Everything, Dominic LeBlanc.
Oh, of course.
So CBC tried to start asking some moderately difficult questions, but they kind of whiffed at the end. But we're not going to show you the whole thing. So let's take a look at Dominic LeBlanc.
Begin, though, with the government's case for why it's doing this. Here with me now is Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Karina.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Canada has essentially taken a key component that it saw originally as leverage against the U.S. today, taking it off the table. So what cards does Canada have left in these negotiations?
Canada has a lot of cards, Karina, to use your analogy, in our conversations with the Americans. We're their most important customer in critical industries. We have opportunities where we can invest in projects as Canadians and Americans that will be critical to economic growth in both countries. So we have a lot of resources and a lot of trading opportunities that the Americans are very interested in. As you said in your opening, these counter tariffs were put in February. The Americans subsequently exempted CUSMA compliant goods. It wasn't on the very first day they announced their tariffs. A couple of days later, I remember a conversation I had with Secretary Lutnick. He told me that they would be announcing that CUSMA compliant imports into the United States would be exempted from these tariffs. Canada hadn't taken that step, and the United States a few weeks ago, for the first time, publicly in an official presidential executive order, committed to respecting the CUSMA compliant exemption, which puts Canada, as the Prime Minister said, in the best position of any other country right now in terms of a trading relationship with the United States. It's not where we want to be. It's not where we were 8 months ago, but we still have a significant marginal advantage, and maintaining tariffs that were not respecting the CUSMA exemption that the Americans had put in place some months ago, in our view, was unwise.
So, as that one reporter asked, Mark Carney, you're basically saying that Canadians should just accept the best of the bad deals. That's basically what you're saying. And then Carney said, wait. No. That's what you're saying. And that's exactly what Dominic LeBlanc just said right there. You haven't negotiated jack. You literally could have just sat on the toilet this whole time and done nothing. And you know what? Probably we would be better off, because if you recall, after the initial tariffs were put in, Carney and Trudeau added tariffs as retaliation, and then the U.S. put tariffs on top of that. Now, I'm not saying that they should have or should not have. What I am saying is that the fact that they're trying to spin this as, well, you know, we're doing great and we're doing amazing as Canadians because we did nothing and we still ended up with the best of the bad deals that are out there. It's complete garbage.
Well, look what they've given up. I don't agree with this tax, but the Liberals did have the DST in place, and then they had to give that up just to get back to the negotiating table. So what did they really gain from that? Well, they went back to zero. And now they've given up these counter tariffs, and what are they getting from that? Doesn't sound like they're getting anything.
Right. So this is the Abacus poll. Now, I'm going to bring it up here. So you can see the Bloc at 7%, the NDP at 7%. They're not doing great, but the Conservatives have gone up. So let's see what how that kind of is affected here. So you see in Atlantic Canada, it's still Liberals with a 2% lead. You have Quebec, they have a 4% lead, and the Conservatives are down at 21%. The Conservatives never really do well in Quebec, so I'm not too worried about that. But I believe the Conservatives were down to 18% at one point. So they're actually doing okay by Conservative standards in Quebec. Ontario, 46 to 44. The NDP are doing atrocious in Ontario at 8%. Manitoba, 52%. Conservatives in the lead. Alberta, no surprise, is a massive 36-point lead. And then British Columbia, there's a 1% lead there. Now this is where it gets interesting, folks. I'm not throwing any shade at any demographic out there, but this is who is really voting for the Liberals, and there's a 8% lead for female voters, and for the Liberals, and ironically an 8% lead for male voters voting Conservative. So that's something.
So gentlemen, please convince your spouses to vote Conservative instead.
Right. And the first thing you can do to do that is convince them to watch Northern Perspective. So now we go down to age groups. So 18 to 29 years old. So we have 38 to 36%. Now the good thing is it seems like most of the Liberal voters in the last election that were in that 18 to 29 bracket didn't vote. But most of the ones that were in the Conservative support column actually did, which is why they accounted for such a large swath of support. 30 to 44 years old, that's a Conservative lead. 45 to 59 years old, that is the largest lead in the Abacus poll for the demographic in terms of age by the Conservatives. They have a 6% lead there. And 60 plus, this is the seniors. This is why everybody, in my opinion, unjustly labels the boomers as the problem demographic. But you can't just label a demographic as a problem. Just as I wouldn't label, the females as a problem, because there's a lot of women that are actually voting Conservative. So don't label all boomers as bad. It's specific swing voters that are boomers that are the issue, and we need to convince them to actually see the problems in the Liberal government and come over.
Well, just to make a comment on these age groups, it seems like the youngest age group, who are, maybe some of them aren't independent of mom and dad, maybe they still live at home, maybe they're off at school and still live on mom and dad's dime, but they are either not independent or probably don't have a family of their own just due to their age. And then also the 60 plus group, who their family has probably grown up and moved out of the house and they're empty nesters. These particular individuals may not be feeling the pinch the way the rest of us are, who still have young families or still have families who may be in their teenage years or even off at school.
So Don B was asking, how can we trust this poll over the others?
Abacus does pretty good work.
They are very objective, and they defend their work as well. They actually had a bunch of Liberals coming after David Coletto, who's the president of Abacus, and after he posted his tweet that we showed on our video the other day, where he said for the first time since March he shows the Conservatives ahead, and he had a whole bunch of people coming after him.
And I do like following David Coletto's profile on X. I think he's a good one to watch because he is very objective, and he's also not afraid to stand up for his work, right? If for example, you were a pollster that was doing shoddy work and you had Liberals and Conservatives coming at you left, right, and center, you wouldn't be able to defend yourself. But because they do good work, they're able to defend themselves.
Well, here's the other thing. Should you be celebrating about this poll? I wouldn't be throwing a party over this poll or anything like that. It's funny.
It's a step in the right direction.
Well, it's funny because Tanya was listening to one of our live streams earlier, and she reminded me that a few weeks ago I said, don't worry about the polls until mid-fall, like around November. Even now, this poll doesn't really mean a lot.
It's a drop in the bucket. Right?
Yeah, it's one data point.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we should be rushing to have an election. What it does mean is it's a potential sign that the honeymoon is over for Mark Carney and that it's starting to shift. The question is will it continue to shift, or is it going to stay here? This is the question. I think.
Oh.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to interrupt and read something from the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is from Craftwork02, and I just kind of saw this zoom by, and it's a really good point. It says, ladies should consider how Carney treats his wife versus how Pierre treats his wife. Actions speak louder than words.
You mean the fact that we never see or
100%.
hear about his wife?
Right. And, going back to that interview that we did with Pierre and Anna, when Anna was speaking, you could see Pierre, like he leaned into her and he's listening to her and he was very attentive. I mean, those are, I think anyways, good qualities to look for in a spouse. So, yeah, I think that's some great advice there, Craftworks.
Well, and even when they were doing their chicken dance, Carney wasn't dancing with his wife. Like, that's the interesting thing.
How do you do like this with somebody? That's so ridiculous.
He could at least be standing next to her, but she was behind him and over here, and he was he I don't know, he was trying to get down with whatever he was trying to do. I'm not sure if that's the way that old banker men dance. I don't know. Maybe that's
I don't want to know.
Yeah. If anyone works for the Bank of England, let us know if that's the initiation dance or whatever. But when it comes to the polls, we need to see more of a trend here to have really some excitement. But I think it's a sign that at least some of the swing voters that voted for Mark Carney because he was going to get a deal with Donald Trump, that's why they indicated their response in this poll. Now, the most important part about this poll is that this didn't include any reaction from any voters as a result of Friday's announcement because the data was collected before that.
Remind me again, did it include Pierre's by-election win?
Potentially. I think it actually, I think the data was collected as of the 19th of August. So it could have included the some of the voters that...
I think it says the 17th, actually. Let me find out. Stand by. I'm going to answer my own question.
Yeah. But it doesn't include that announcement. And that announcement, I think, is really going to tick off a lot of people who voted for Carney to get a deal. And then he's going to turn around and say, well, we actually haven't had to negotiate. We've been trying to negotiate for months, and we're just going to turn around and say, but you have a great deal already.
Yeah,
And
let's just walk away. This is good enough.
And one of the theories that we postulated, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, based on something Carney said about Kuzma coming and stuff like that, we'd said that maybe he's trying to kind of delay this out until the Kuzma negotiations come, and then he's going to try and say, well, let's not worry about the tariffs anymore. We'll talk about that. That seems like exactly what he's trying to play here. But
that's not until what, later on in the year, or possibly
next year,
the new year. Okay.
Next year.
So what, you're going to let the Hamilton steel industry just die until then?
This is gonna be the issue. I think you're going to hear about Hamilton and Sault Ste. Marie. I think you're going to hear about those two communities and how hard the tariffs are hitting them. You're going to hear about that a lot in the House of Commons. So if you're in one of the Sault Ste. Marie ridings, or if you're in one of the Hamilton ridings like we are, it's probably going to be front and center because there's massive tariffs on Canadian steel coming into the U.S.
And if you are in one of these ridings that are affected by these tariffs, write your MP and let them know. And you may not hear a response, but they could use that information in the House of Commons in a speech. They could use it in question period. So let them know, absolutely.
Right. So...
and to answer my own question, the Abacus polling was done from August 15th to 19th. So that does include Pierre's by-election win.
So thought my memory was still okay. Sometimes it's not, but there you go. Anyway, so what does this mean? Well, what it means is you probably heard a little bit from Melissa Lanson there. You heard about this from Pierre Poilievre, and we heard it from RMP. The strategy is going to be pretty simple from the Conservatives, but it's going to be a delicate one. What they're going to do is they're going to come back into the House. They're going to be criticizing Mark Carney for not getting any deals done. They're going to be hammering him for essentially, well, they'll accuse him of lying to Canadians during the election by completely doing a 180 on his tough talk on Donald Trump. And they're going to hammer him for nothing getting built, for no consensus being made. probably hammer him for getting taken to court as a result of Bill C-5. And then what they're going to do after they're done all that is they're going to say, you obviously can't get anything done, so we're proposing the same legislation that we would propose if we were in government in order to get something done. And
it's an embarrassment, really, is what it is.
Right. But I think they're going to do it in a way that says, come on, liberals, let's be nonpartisan, let's join together, let's build Canada, and let's get something done. This puts the liberals in a very boxed in position because
it puts them on the back foot for sure.
Right, because the conservatives are saying, you can't get anything done, we will. Join us in getting something done. Do you really want to build Canada, or are you going to remain partisan? This is what they're going to try and do. So the conservatives are actually taking a page out of the liberal playbook and actually implementing this. And they're going to try and get some partisan support from the Bloc and the NDP on this, because this could be a win for all of those opposition parties to embarrass the Liberals. The Liberals have a choice. They either say yes and admit that the Conservative policy and plan is better than theirs, or they say no, in which case they're the ones that are revealing themselves to be partisan, and they're the ones that are revealing themselves to not be building Canada. So it really, really puts them on the back foot, and I think you're going to see multiple pieces of legislation put forward in private member bills and opposition motions, and it's not going to stop with the Conservatives. The Bloc are going to be really pushing ahead on their agenda, and I imagine they're going to try and take a page out of that and do the same thing, and the NDP are as well. This is going to be a fall session where I think all of the opposition parties are really going to be teaming up together while poking at each other, but teaming up together to really attack the Liberals, because they all see that the mirage has faded for a lot of the swing voters on the Liberals, as evidenced by this poll. And if they can keep chipping away and revealing what actually is to be the case, which is Mark Carney can't get anything done and it's the same old Liberals, you're going to see a really fascinating fall of political chess. And I can't wait to see all the moves played.